Hello, I'm so happy I got a hold of you. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Lucius Showcase. I am Lucious T, and welcome to the final week of 16-bit RPG month. And we're finishing out with yet another Super Nintendo game. I should have just made this Super Nintendo month. Anyways, that is Lufia II Rise of the Sinestrals. Now, I've had this game on my radar forever. It's always in top 10 Super Nintendo game lists, and it's always more of a dark horse that you don't really hear about as much. Well, we have it. We're going to play it. What do I think about it? Let's find out.
There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. I'm Lucious T. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life. This is Retroactive.
Lufia II Rise of the Sinestrals. Oh my god, where has this game been all my life? You mean to tell me there is a game that plays like Link to the Past, but is a 16-bit RPG where in the dungeons you can see there's no random battles, only on the overworld, is very smart, a lot of cool characters, a lot of real stakes. I'm just going to be gushing about this game. I was so surprised. I've heard how good it was, but it's always one of those dark horse candidates where you hear about it, but you don't hear about it. And then every once in a while, you'll see it on a list where it's like, oh, it's number 3 on the list. And you're like, what? I never even heard of the first game. Why is the second game so revered? And what the hell is a Sinestral? But going through it, it is a masterpiece. This is a masterful game. It's very linear for a time, but that doesn't bog it down. It has a lot of great areas where, as far as the way when I approach RPGs, because I do a lot of these, you want to find areas where you can, if the game is difficult, you want to find easy access areas where you can level up a lot. You want to be able to know where you're going. You want the upgrades to be clear and concise. And this game has all of that. Some of the down things it does have, when you level up, you don't get automatically healed. You don't even get any health. You know, even in some games where when you level up, it'll give you the amount of health you gain. You don't get that. When you get poisoned, poison stays with you, but none of the other status effects stay with you. And when you die, you don't get any experience from that fight, but you stay dead even if you go to a hotel or an inn to heal. It won't raise you. So the only way you can be raised is you either have to use the spell called Rally, or you have to go to the church or the monastery, and they have to raise you, kind of similar to Icewind Dale. Those aren't really big drawbacks because you have a dungeon system where you pick up a bomb item, you pick up arrow items, you pick up a fire arrow, you pick up a hook chain, and then you pick up a ball and chain, and I think there's one that I'm not remembering. But they essentially allow you to approach these dungeons where there's false walls that can be broken, there's switches that can be hit from distance, there's poles that you can ratchet to, and they give it a new mechanic I've never seen in a Zelda game where you can actually hit the pillars and put them on switches. Like, it's basically like playing Zelda-style dungeons, but then you have enemies in the middle that if you touch them, you go into a turn-based battle. And in the turn-based battle, you have 3 meters. You have your health, of course, you have your magic, of course, but then there's one called IP, which I really didn't take much advantage of. That's something I'd probably dabble more in if I did a second playthrough. And what the IP does is every time your character takes damage, one of the 4 you're playing with, or however many of them at the time, they gain some IP. So it's almost like a berserker rage. Like the more you get hurt, the you can unleash this stuff. And the items you wear, the different items you wear, the trinkets you wear, the weapons, depending on if they're a special weapon, they'll have an IP attack, which allows you to do some super cool attack that will do, you know, triple damage or affect more enemies or protect you or give yourself a buff or various other effects that these things can do, which really just alters the amount of the game and then makes the thing that I like about games where it's like, oh, it's a clear choice of which one is the better one to use, a little muddy. Luckily, you can still go through it the way I do, just breakneck speed where, nope, give me the best weapon, the best everything, and I'm going to destroy. But having the option to use the other stuff means you don't have to do what I do, where I try to find good grinding spots. And this game has plenty of them. Although I will say, my method of grinding up all the team is a little misguided at times because unlike other RPGs, in this game, your party members will leave you permanently. So as you go through the game, you pick up, so you start out with Maxim, and then you get Tia, his childhood friend, you get Guy, who's a badass, and then Selen. And I'm playing it, I'm like, oh, this is the 4 players. No, Tia ends up leaving. You never see her again. You then pick up Deckard, who then he ends up sacrificing himself. So once he's gone, you pick up the scientist Lexi, who he's with you for a bit until he upgrades your... You get a ship by this point that allows you to travel all the ocean, but then he upgrades it to a submarine so you can go under the ocean. He leaves you, and then you pick up an elf dude, who I think his name is Andres or Abigail, I don't know, Andrew, something like that, Andrea. So you get him. That's your final four right there. But you go through the whole game, and really the fourth member is kind of the one who's interchangeable. But what happens is when you get the person for the first time, they don't scale it to your team, they have it be whatever level they're going to be. And because I'm so proactive about leveling myself, every time I would lose one of my characters, I would get an immediate 10 level downgrade, especially later in the game. But luckily, the leveling systems seem pretty quickly. You can blast through some of these. A lot of the enemies are vulnerable based on kind of intelligent thinking, like, oh, if the tree enemy, you'll be vulnerable to fire, and then you can just waste them. They have the ability to attack with one, or you can push the R button and attack everything simultaneously. There is a order of operations that, for the most part, you go before the enemies. Some enemies, though, like really the main thing you have to worry about is the enemies that do the instant kill. But other than that, it's pretty much a cakewalk in a lot of ways. I think one of the toughest boss fight I came across was the spider boss. In like the third dungeon, just because he was, I don't know, maybe I wasn't high enough level, or I just didn't approach him the right way, but I actually died on him and had to do it a second time. But other than that, I made it through the game pretty seamlessly. I guess Lufia 2 is known for having a rushed development cycle, so there's a glitch towards the end of the game when you find the twin blade, where you go into a temple that is not supposed to look like this, and I did have to look up what the hell's going on here, because I wasn't sure if my game was broken, or no, that's just the way it is, and you just have to wander around until you find the item, and then bam, you're out of there. So that was a little interesting, but such a great game. This feels like something that should be made by Squaresoft, or it's so good, but I guess because it is really a combination of, it's what Mystic Quest tried to do, but man, they do it in such a better way. The puzzles are just inspired, and other than a few of them that are like the red and the yellow blocks, that puzzle can die in a fire. But other than that, man, really fun game. And long game, too. I think this clocked in around 35 hours, like 35 true gameplay hours. And spoilers, if you know anything, that the fact that this is a prequel to Lufia 1, you know that the main character is going to die in the end. So that's kind of a, it hangs over the whole of the game, because you know that they're going to their death. But also, it's such a beautiful sacrifice anyways. And I really enjoyed the Sinestrals, just because they had really interesting sprites. They're these giant, powerful beings, and I guess they're in the first game too. Yeah, I guess you didn't win, you didn't kill them. Kind of funny. But as far as the rating goes, on Lufia 2 Rise of the Sinestrals, I gotta give it a 9.5. This one's rivaling Chrono Trigger as far as my enjoyment for this month. Still gonna give it to Chrono Trigger over this one, because it's just such a complete game. But man, this was a good one. This was a very, very good game. So a 9.5, well earned. As far as pick it up, emulate it, or skip it, I can't justify spending $170 on this. And the Game Boy remake is not just as expensive, but still pretty damn expensive. And I don't know, I from what I've read on it, I like the Super Nintendo one more. They changed a little bit on the Game Boy one, or Game Boy Advance. But wholeheartedly emulate it. If you have the funds, pick it up, but I'm going to give it an emulate it. And there you have it, Lufia 2. Phenomenal game. I wish it wasn't so expensive, because this game rocks. It's like $170. Way too much. But well worth it. I am very happy I spent the $70 on it a few years ago, because damn. This is a highlight in my Super Nintendo collection, and it has rocketed up the list to one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. It is so unique and so much fun. So yeah, let me know if you thought about the episode. Let me know if I should play Fortress of Doom, the first one, just because it's kind of a continuation at this point, even though it's the original game. And yeah, as a reminder, I release a new video every Tuesday. And thank you for liking and commenting and subscribing to the channel. Please, it helps a lot. We are finally, I think, ahead of 1,400 subs, and we're not going to dip back down below it. So that's great. Great grape juice. It's been so great getting a hold of you guys. Take care. I don't often do this, but I missed a part. I didn't talk about the Endless Dungeon. So the Endless Dungeon is super cool. It's almost its own game in itself because you get leveled down to level 1, you lose all your items, and it's just go through 100 floors of monsters. I got to around level 28, and I was just like, oh god, this is gonna take hours, because I think to get to level 28, I was like 3 or 4 hours in, and I just didn't have the patience for it. That's something that you definitely would do on a New Game Plus, but super cool. I know people love it, so yes, the Endless Dungeon, or not the 100 floor dungeon, very cool, very unique feature, almost its separate game in itself, so yeah, great game.